Morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Grant Cameron, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in and taking time to watch this broadcast. I'm here with my co-host, Sinead Wellahan from Toronto, Canada, and I have a special guest today, Linda Green, who I was introduced to by a friend of mine here in Winnipeg, Mark Olson, and it was a fascinating story that deals with speaking light languages, and it grew into a story of lifelong experience and an incredible story, which we're going to try to deal with tonight, and we're going to try to go through it. So I want to first welcome Sinead to the conference and the talk, and I'm sure that you're excited to see this. You've heard about this light language that you and I have interacted with people on.
Yes, I definitely am. Thanks again for having me here to do this with you, Grant. It's always really fun and always very interesting. I always learn something new. And so I'm very much looking forward to hearing Linda's story and sharing it with your audience.
And welcome, Linda. Linda Green from Phoenix, Arizona. You're in the warm there, and
I'm in the warm here.
Beautiful. Now I've seen a video of you talking light language, and that's how it started for me. But usually when we go through this, we know that people have like a lifelong experience. So can you sort of build a background as how did Linda Green get into going to UFO conferences and being involved with a pretty strange topic?
Right. Well, that is a pretty strange topic. And I was completely unaware of even extraterrestrials until the year 2007. When I got involved with quantum biofeedback. And I guess that's even kind of a strange thing to do for most people. And that there is even some connection between being involved in quantum biofeedback and maybe connection or higher evolved beings and just that kind of concept.
Can you explain what that is? Because I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about that. Quantum biofeedback it's actually a device that I paid $18,000 for. But it scans your electromagnetic field, and it will find where you're out of balance. And so then it energetically balances you. Now, one of the reasons I bought these machines was because I was struggling with my own depression, my own emotions, my own stuff that I've been trying and working on all my life, trying to get my brain to work right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's true now, but who knows?
So it goes back to childhood when you wind
yes, it does. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my first experience is that it would have been what I believe is my first experience. I've been told that it happened anywhere between 3 and 8, 5 and 8, but I believe it happened when I was about 5 years old. I lived in Appleton, Wisconsin. I think there's a fair amount of activity goes on in the Wisconsin area with the Great Lakes right there and all of that. So I was just like upstairs in my room, kind of moving my furniture around. And I was 5, and I turn around and there is this gigantic spider in my room. I mean, it is the size of my room. And I turn around and there's the spider, looks like a black widow with no red on the belly. That's the only difference. And there's absolutely no fear, none. I turn around and it's like, oh, and that's all I have is a memory of that. And then, but what I did have is I started not sleeping at the age of 11. And that still plagues me today. When I got to be a teenager, so I don't have memories. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit when we go on with that, and I want people to know that you can be contacted, you could have been abducted because they take your memories. But they don't necessarily, but you can have cellular trauma from an abduction because when something scares you that much, it can, I've actually spoke with a medical intuitive a year ago. He said that because of a childhood trauma, especially around nighttime, your thymus shut down. And that also helps control fear and regulates the whole body. And so, I mean, so there's all this going on without a memory of it. So I had, as I became a teenager, interestingly enough, I joined the military right out of high school.
Okay. And what branch?
Isn't that interesting?
What branch? Was it Air Force?
doing the Air Force right out of high school. And I would start to get dreams in this when I was in the military that summer. So it was the summer of 1971.
Okay.
I would have dreams, a repetitive dream of being outside, and I would be looking up at the night sky, and there were stars. I mean, it was like this beautiful stars in the sky, and they would start to form, they would start to move, and then they would have this wonderful formation, and I would be like in awe. I was in awe of these beautiful formations, but then the next moment I was in my home, I was back at my house in Appleton, and I'm outside and they're looking for me, and I know there's nowhere to hide. So that dream went on over and over and over and over and over. And the other thing that was going on is that I was getting these sore throats with white spots on them regularly, and they were, you know, pumping me with penicillins. It'd be 2 weeks later and I'd have another sore throat with these white spots on it. So I think there's something going on with the military too, but that's still something I'm not sure about. What I've learned in the process, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, is that I have a certain kind of DNA that is preferred by extraterrestrials.
Okay.
They call it, because I've met a lot of readers and things that say, oh, you're not really from here, are you? You vibrate different. And that's the thing they say to me, you vibrate different. And one said, and you have this white light in front of your third eye. And so I've been hearing that. And so recently, from a different channel, I was told that people like me who vibrate at this oscillation of frequency are like 1 in every 250,000 to 1 in every 300,000 humans. And extraterrestrials prefer Rh negative blood. They consider it's more cosmic. So they like to abduct people who are Rh negative.
And you are?
So I am.
Yeah, so am I.
And you are too? Oh yeah, see, there you go. If you go to a UFO conference, you're gonna find at least half of the people are Rh
right.
negative. So yeah. That's an indicator of why people are interested in this. They consider it cosmic, and what they called me was a royal. And the royal, the only thing really different about us, and I've asked questions, is that the DNA is just slightly more advanced. Feel more, transmit more, and transmute more, and can really change things. It's just that I also feel so much. I think it's been very difficult to be.
So you're empathic, like a lot of people describe?
Empath, yeah.
Okay.
I'm an empath.
Okay.
So as a young teenager, or as I got into the military, the fear that I had about going to bed was so great that around 9 o'clock at night, I lived off base, and I would start to panic. It was like 9 o'clock at night. I'd panic. I'd go out. I'd hitchhike. I'm in the military. Wasn't hard to get a ride. I'd hitchhike. I'd get drunk. I'd get someone to take me home, and all day long I'd be saying, "I promise I won't do this again. I promise I won't do this again," because I'd be so sick and hungover. 9 o'clock roll around, panic. I'm back out there. I mean, I don't know what really happened that I have quite that much fear around it. But even as a married woman, with my husband, it's time to go to bed. And sometimes the fear, I mean, just the idea, okay, we're going to bed. I start to can't breathe. I start to like hold my breath, and I'm just going to bed, right? Should be a nice place to go. But for me, it's just been a very difficult place. And
are you one of the people that sleeps with the light on?
I hate light. Isn't that interesting? I like it dark. That's very interesting, right? You would think I would want the light on. No, I like it really, really. I don't like any lights. I don't like any sound. I like it like if there's any sounds that I'm just like into total fear right away.
Did it ever get any better, or is it your entire life you still have this problem?
Well, when it started to get better was maybe 5 years ago, when I realized for the first time that the abduction experience might have been scary. I never made a connection. But once I did that, at first when I figured it out, I was really scared because I thought I would call it back to me. But then I thought, just Linda, this sounds silly, just open your eyes. Because I was afraid that there would be something right here, right there. And so now when I get scared or when I'm feeling tight, I just go, Linda, open your eyes. And there's nothing there. Well, sometimes there is, but it's not the gray. It's maybe more like an energy form or something like that. But it's the grays that were the beginning abduction. And I don't think they were trying to harm me. I just think they didn't have any emotion. They're taking your clothes off. They're probing you. You're having, yeah, all this stuff going on with you.
Can I ask a question? So it starts with the grays, and you talked about like sort of energy beings. So is it a progression of beings as you go along that changes? Because sometimes there's a theory that the grays are very that when you're in fear and when you go higher up, then you start to pick up different types of beings. And that's
exactly.
Almost like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, now they're like light beings. They're like light beings, and and I've also had downloads where there's like sacred, like a geometric patterns that'll just come like this. Sometimes at night it'll just be like doing that, and those I like, you know. That's a whole different experience. I kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I'm getting a download. How cool is that? But yeah.
Sinead has had that, so you
have you had that, Sinead? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so go on.
I went to Peru 2.5 years ago and had an ayahuasca experience where I saw light beings, and that's the only kind of being I've ever seen. And at the time, I didn't know really what I was seeing or what the meaning was of that. But it was Grant who started me thinking about the different types of beings and why there are different types of beings. So it's interesting to hear that. For you, it started off with the grays first, and then it's changed over time. That's the first I've heard of that.
It's changed, and I'm grateful for that. And if I am having experiences with the grays yet, I still like no recall of that. It's more like it's energy, it's light, it's things. But there will be things in the room, density of presence. Sometimes it'll feel like a rush. Also, there'll be a rush across my body. There'll be that kind of thing going on. I have a lot going on.
Can I ask a question? You've talked about different relationships you've had. Sometimes there's a theory that they put you together with other people who have similar experiences. Do you believe that's happening?
I think it does happen. Okay. I mean, with this person, I dated a man who had also, you know, and it's really tough. Now I'm single, and now I know. So I can't date a man without telling him, I think I've been abducted. And I have some issues. I mean, I'm not like, I have had some vaginal pain from this. I started before I even, you know, my first, this would be very personal, but I think it's important for anybody else who's having symptoms. I mean, even the first tampon was excruciating pain. So I'm 13 now. Yeah. And so I've had sexual issues because of it, because there's pain. I've had sleep problems. I've had problems where I don't want anyone in my bed because if they move, I'm scared, or and so it's been, but truthfully, knowing is what's helping me. So that's what I call cellular trauma, where you're having, like, if you had remembered the trauma, you'd be having all of these things happen. You'd be scared to go to bed because you had a trauma from somebody being there. You would be, you know, frightened when someone's next to you and they've moved too fast, or you can't breathe. But none of that is in my memory. I've been hypnotized, and there's so much fear in that. But it's just in the body. Yeah. So it's carried in the body. And you're right about the fact that they sense fear. And apparently my mother has also been abducted. Okay. And she also has that Rh negative blood. And I guess also my father. See, I always thought it was my father because at a young age, I don't know, 10, 12, my father had a book, you know, with a picture of a UFO on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And he put it in my face, and he's like, see this, see this? And he looked me right in the eye. They're real. So that was interesting. And he was always like with the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. It was like, you know, he wanted us to see that and to know about that. So he really pointed that out. And I've been told that he had a different experience than I did. That my mother and I, because the Greys, they're actually not aliens, they're humans who destroyed their planet, and they found a way to our planet. They're interdimensional beings. But my father had an experience with what he called the long-nosed Greys, the Orion long-nosed Greys. And I just get the feeling that was not good. He was very angry. He could be so delightful, but he had this rage in him. And I wish he were alive so we could talk about this.
What about your mother? Did your mother describe her experiences at all?
No, my mother didn't. In fact, I was shocked about my mother because my sisters, I've been told my sister does too, she is not Rh negative, but my mother was very calm. Unlike me, you know, I was like a little kind of crazy person, you know. Oh, my head's crazy. And my mother was so calm, and so I never would have guessed my mother was abducted. But I was at her house one night. She was older at this point, and I heard this, oh! And then that was the first time I ever went, maybe she was abducted. But before that, I never would have thought it because of her countenance was so calm. She didn't seem like anything was wrong with her. Like I feel like I had lots of emotional issues. So.
Did the regression help in terms of pulling out? Because sometimes you hear about people that it may not do much, but it relieves some of the stress and the pain.
The regression was helpful, I think, because it again was, so it started out, and it was difficult. I was scared. You know, it's interesting because you're in denial for a long time. There's a lot of fear around even knowing. So I did that with Yvonne Smith, was my first regression, was with Yvonne Smith. And the first thing that happened was like, I'm like leaning back and my chest is forward, you know, and it's like, and it was like that. And so she had to calm me down. And then I went back into it again, and she had to calm me down, and I think one more time. And then we started to progress with that because we were looking specifically for April 1971 when I'm a douser now, a douse that I had been abducted in 1971. And then later, and with there's many times, this is just the one maybe where a child was definitely involved. So later in that regression, there was more physical. It's again the physical, this cellular memory. It was like I'm getting this pressure on my belly, like pressure, pressure, pressure. It's like pressure, pressure, pressure. It's people on this pressure. It's like almost like steel pressing on your stomach, and then it would stop, and then you go, and then it would start again. It would be like pressure, pressure, pressure. And then, you know, as I'm under the hypnosis, I'm making the connection that it seems like labor pains. So that's what happened with that.
What kind of regression was it, Linda? Like, what was it? QHHT? Was it general past life regression? Was there a particular type that was being used to help you with this?
That's a good question. I don't know what Yvonne does, Yvonne Smith. She's been regressing people for 26 years, so she's pretty skilled at it. And then the only being that there was like a curve around. It was like like an MRI has that round look. It was like a white round thing. Everything is like a dream-like state. And the only being I saw in that one was at the end of the regression, and it was a mantis. It was a mantis head right in front of me. So that was that first regression. What it helps to do was, since I'm being told all these people are telling me I've been abducted, I'm dousing that I've been abducted, I'm having symptomology of being abducted. Another one is an obsession with owls. That's another symptom of abduction. But
Can you tell me an owl story? Because have you dealt with Mike Clelland, the owl guy?
I have not.
Okay, so tell me your owl story, like your sort of more dramatic owl story.
Well, my a dramatic owl story is if, well, I've got it, I'm looking at an owl that I placed outside. You become obsessed with owls. I mean, they were all over my house. People knew that they could get me an owl. What do you want? Just get her an owl. So I have all these owls everywhere, and for me though, it's like this love. I have a love of owls. It's this, but it's an obsession. And
Yeah.
I didn't know, again, there was a connection between abduction and owls until I got much older. So again, there's symptomology, even if you don't have the memory.
So it seems
that's
like you
interesting.
have been going through a gradual process of discovering,
Yes.
you know, what you initially first started experiencing in your conscious memory anyway at age 5 with this gigantic spider that was in your room,
Right.
and the sleep problems and the other issues, and then the regression, and gradually learning through the regression what you feel has happened. So has it just been a natural part of your journey that the light language has started to be an experience, or is that like, did that happen spontaneously, or was it something you sought out? How did that end up coming into your life?
It was more spontaneous, but not completely spontaneous. So someone had told me about a Judy Satori, that was the name, and they'd given me a tape by Judy Satori, and she has the light language. And so I'm listening to this light language. I turn it on, I go, I get excited, like, I know that, right? I know that this is familiar. And I found myself starting to form the words, and then it just started. And it was like 15 minutes straight, you know, I was speaking light language, but I don't know it's light language. Okay, so you have to know, again, you don't know. You're just, all of a sudden, you're doing this, making sounds. It sounds like a language. And my jaw aches because it's 15 minutes and I don't move my jaw that way all the time. And that was repeating day after day after day for like a month and a half. And then I made myself stop. It was like, Linda, this is stupid. You're just talking nonsense. So I discounted it because I didn't know what I was saying. So I discounted it and I forced myself, because I had to force it because it wanted to speak. And I was like, nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to speak this language. And then I met another person who started talking about me working with language. And I said, well, that's interesting because I have this language that came up. And they go, yeah, that language. And so I allowed myself to reintroduce it to my life. And so now I've been using and working with light language and learning about light language since 2014. So I've had.
Is that when it started for you? Like, what's the time period when this?
2012.
2012.
So I stopped for like a year and a half. I would not do it. Because, you know, it's like, I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't have anybody to say it to. It's just me in the mirror. But the interesting thing about the beginning light language is the quantity of emotion. I would be speaking. I would be bawling. I was having all of these powerful emotions. A lot of it was, there's some grief in it. There was some grief in that, in light language. It was bringing things up, maybe bringing things out. Maybe that was part of me getting healthy, because everybody's told me in the past how much I've changed. Like, oh my God, Linda, you are so different. You are so different. You used to be all stiff and kind of anxious. And now you're like this really awesome person. But I mean, I'm more relaxed. I'm more confident. Just the fact that I'm even talking about this online and letting you see me, I was like hiding. I didn't want anybody to know, because when I was a businesswoman, which is what I was a businesswoman, I would make fun of people who had these kinds of experiences. So that was part of what I had to overcome to get the confidence to stand here and let who knows see it, and know that they could choose to make fun of me, or whatever. And now that I know who I am, I know why I'm here, it doesn't matter anymore. You can do that because I know who I am. You cannot knock me over with your opinion anymore.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I know it's been taking me a while, and I just love it. And for a moment when Mark was going to be on here, I went, Mark, he's not going to be here, right? Then I thought, Linda, you got this, right? You're ready. You don't have to have an anchor. You don't have to have a crutch.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good right now, just the way you are.
Yeah, I think you mentioned to me that the light language sort of, even though you talk it when you were by yourself, that you really didn't know what you were saying, but it would calm you down. Is that correct? That you would?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And still does. It calms me down, and it builds up, and it wants to speak. That's how I say it. It wants to speak. And there was a time, can I share a short story about what happened to me in Egypt?
Oh yeah, sure.
So I was in Egypt this October, and we were at a pyramid. There's the black and the red and the pyramid, but we were standing next to like an altar, and it's hot outside, and we had just done a prayer. It was like a group of goddesses. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm driven by spirituality. I'm driven about getting in touch with God inside. I'm driven and have been since I was 14, reading the Bible. And there's a consciousness that I have that I want to be aware. But we had just gotten done doing a prayer, and then Arena, who was part of leading the group, said, does anybody have anything to say? And this light language wanted to speak. But guess what? I didn't. And you know what happened? I went down. I almost collapsed. I thought I was going to throw up and have diarrhea at the same time. I could hardly breathe. It was a profound reaction. And so we get back, they walk me back, and as the moment I'm starting to walk away, I'm going, well, I'm feeling better, because they were trying to get me to a bathroom, but I would have gone in the middle of the desert with people around if you just put a scarf on, because it was that bad. So I get on, they won't let me go in I'm feeling better, but they won't let me go on the bus or the pyramid. So I said, let's connect with the people who are in the pyramid, because I couldn't go, 4 of us stayed behind. And it says, we'll connect with those people. We're going to do this prayer. I'm going to speak light language. And when we're done, we're going to all tone. And the light language came out. And this was such a powerful prayer. It was also, in this particular instance, like a prayer of the light language was like saying, forgive me. In this case, it was like I had done some kind of a betrayal. Just a betrayal in a past life. And I don't think I was allowed in that pyramid, because I didn't get to go in that pyramid. I don't think I was allowed in that pyramid. And there was such a healing. I got done, we did this light language, I did that, and it was profound. And again, there's tears, and I'm almost like supplicating for them to forgive me. And when it's done, I am so cleansed, so free.
Amazing.
So it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And then there was another person who channels, and she goes, Linda, you also helped them because they had things that needed to be forgiven as well.
Wow.
So that was really a powerful experience. I had like 4 beautiful experiences in Egypt, and one in the King's Chamber, where there was a woman who was in the sarcophagus, and we were going to sing their names. And as we started singing this one woman's name, the moment she went in there, I reached for her. I started singing her name, but then it changed. I'm singing some kind of a foreign language in a song that I don't recognize, in a tone, in a cadence I've never heard before. And it's so profound, and it's full of love, deep reverence, deep love, and then also like deep loss. And when I'm done, I am weeping and shaking, and it you know, both my dowsing and Arena's dowsing identified the year that something happened in the year 5555 BC. And that this woman was a teacher, an initiate, and we were her initiates, and she had died, and very fascinating.
Wow.
Oh, so
Do you just speak one language, or do you have a number?
I have identified at least 5. There's 5. One, I watched someone who said that they were speaking Syrian. It's like, I've definitely got that.
Okay.
One feels very guttural, almost like it's a Germanic or Hungarian or something along that line. One feels very Oriental. One feels, so I've got the Orientals. One feels like it's sort of Spanish. One feels, well, there's more than 5. One feels like Indian, like Native American. There are times I feel like I sound like I'm Native American. And then there's the Oriental, and then there's one that doesn't sound like any language on earth.
So when you're speaking these languages, do you have any motifs or animal totems or geometrical shapes or any kind of visuals that come up in your mind when you're doing this? No. No,
it's more a feeling. It's more a feeling. It's more like when I'm speaking the language, I notice that a lot of what I do with this language is it wants to speak to people who are, oh, let's see, I feel emotional, who are of service to this planet, people who don't feel like they're from here. And it wants to honor them.
Why do you think that it has a healing effect? I mean, it sounds like it's a feeling, it's a vibration, it's a very strong vibration. What is it about that feeling and vibration that you think has a healing effect? Not just for you, but this is something that occurs with other people as well.
I think that this language it's from the stars. I think it's from stars, and it's also very ancient. I've had people feel it feels really, really ancient. And I think when people hear it, it touches their soul. They know what it means on a higher self. The higher self knows what it means. It reminds them of their true home. This is not it. Their true home. And it helps remind them that they're more than who they think they are. So I think that alone is healing for people. And when they hear it, even if they don't understand it, I think there's a familiarity to it that they're also just relating to. I mean, some people cry because they do remember home.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that, like, when the light language occurs, in your own experience and maybe your experience of observing other people who also speak light language, do you find that it sort of randomly emerges, or in terms of the people that are around you at the time that this happens, does it just randomly happen, or do you find that it's coming out for the purpose, the benefit, or the purpose of these people who are there with you at that time, so they specifically can hear?
If I can speak a light language anytime, it's easier for me to do that than to speak, because I have to think and then words have to come out. When I'm speaking light language, it's just flowing. It's just, I don't have to do anything. It just does it. So that's really easy. And there are times when it feels like it's building up pressure in my chest. It'll feel like it's building up into like the thymus and the throat. And I still hold it back, even though I had promised I would try to be more conscious about actually when it wants to speaking it. But it's so hard to just break out speaking a light language in groups where they have no clue.
Are you able to do like now so people can understand? Because some people may not have heard light language in terms of, yeah, and maybe there's a message or somebody, you never know, somebody will hear it and pick it up that, oh, I do that too. Because it's not that popular yet in terms of people being outed and outing themselves with this. Go ahead.
Right, sure. And I'm going to put to it an intention, if you don't mind. I'm going to come up with an intention.
Beautiful.
That it be for people to know who they are to know that they are God, and to know that everything that's going on in the planet is all, you know, we have things going on, but it's really the fear that's causing the issues, not really even this crypto, you know, though that cryptocurrency, the coronavirus, it's fear, and that we need to start thinking as a collective. So this is going to be a light language of healing, a light language for people to feel safe, a light language for people to remember that we're all connected. And that when we start acting as a collective, instead of like, oh, I've got to save myself at the expense of my brother, when they start realizing that we're all, when we work together, everything works. And when we just start to think of ourselves only, things crash. Our stock market crashes, our grocery stores are empty, and there are people who need things, but one person has it all. So
just to give you a little bit of an insight, if you'd been on the air 15 minutes before, you would have heard me talking about exactly that.
Good. So we're on
the same path. So I'm happy you're going to do this message. So go ahead.
Thank you. All right. Emishte kodawasa na truishi ketarasi kishnawasta. Emma kostunua. Makire washun shunumale ketarasi kodawasur. Mikira stunu kodawasa antre kirsch. Alamukur sinteresse. Lomokotroikante. Lomostur. Kastunumor kastantro kur. Amokotruiki kestunumor. Kira santala shokurshun tekata. Mokur wasika no stun kodawasa anteleki. No kostunu kite, kostunu stunenale, kininu kera, sun sturabakers. Muristi kerase. Muristantale sunturu katrik sinte, shun telamate, urstuna morta. Unustura katsanta, mekisti kataro, sintro kosore, kasiet, ostemali, si, stinino kodawati katamastuni kastuatele. Antaweke, si kust, and the mastus, and the masilu mofuru, contrave here. Alamu urstun koravaka. Alamu kustunimi atre, ikumukoala ke kantue, le unstumahale, hirst gulua anstela ha kust, imur sampakastini hist. Onomo portoro son ter, amokotro isitro ke, amokoro sitalo shunto wahare hirst, umor ke restantro kir. Omokotro se, onomor, elai stumukuro se. Alahar ustunko tantale contro sintist mahale kir alomokutore kers mahar histina wata istina gowat ekistinishtika wast ino mohore kitir stir mor la ukotwateriku mohor ketta istikota kindi astunistinika astini hier kut ustir ikahasta instini astinhustiki astia Ikesta, on controlla kæra, stil, stum, hus, stum, kroate, kier. Och påstå, la hasta, husten till hjästa. Och te, och måste, ke. Alla to, ashtu kutuwe, amo katrikesi, akop motoriki.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. The one thing I noticed, Sinead had about a month ago with a medium in Canada who started speaking light language to her spontaneously.
Nice.
What I noticed with yours is that the last half, maybe the last 1/5 of it, it was almost like the language changed.
It did.
Yeah.
I felt it. It was something else, yeah.
And that's what happened to Sinead as well, because Sinead has hearing disability, so she didn't pick it up, but I picked it up immediately. I said, that language changed, and you did exactly the same thing, which really was amazing. And I could see the emotion in when you were talking. So it'll be interesting to see whether somebody online comes and says, I relate to that, and we may have other people who say, me too, and I hope that happens.
I hope so too. I hope so too, because we want to, this Cryan, I was at a Cryan event. You know who he is? Charlie Carroll channels Cryan. And I asked him, because I had the light language, I didn't tell him I had it. I says, well, you know, there's all this light language. And he said, well, Cryan keeps saying that the old tools that healers used to use aren't working anymore. But he said light language, that's what Cryan says is one of the new healing tools on the planet. and it's exploding. People are going to start having this light language. So we're just some of the forerunners.
Beautiful.
And we can help teach people and educate people and help them feel free, or even know what it is instead of trying to stop it.
Yeah. You mentioned before that you do dowsing. Do you have other abilities? Like, you see a lot of experiencers will have abilities, precognitive, presentient, dowsing, healing. Do you do healing?
I do healing work. I do energy healing. I've studied with medical intuitives, and I do cranial sacral, the reconnection. I've had some visions. I get some visions, and I have started channeling in English, which is more new for me. And then I'm starting to get comfortable with it. And what I think it is too is because we can all do it, and I connect to my higher self, myself on the other side, and I just breathe and I ask, I want to communicate with my higher self. I want to communicate with my higher self. And I ask until I get this smile, this natural smile. It's sort of like a smile comes to my face, and then I'm connected, and I get these really intelligent, higher, loving, very nice answers. And I've done it the last week. I've done it for 3 people, so I'm trying to answer questions for them. So, and they've been very happy. And the other thing I noticed is when it was done, I was so calm. I was so calm, and I'm not always calm. I was so calm. It was like, oh, wow, that's great. I have to do more of that.
Do you feel that regardless of what language ends up coming out, that there's a common message with all of the languages regardless, or do they tend to have different themes or different messages?
That's a wonderful question. And I actually asked, there's a young woman here who teaches light language and works with light language. And she channels the Council of Time, the Lyrian Council of Time. And I asked that question too, because I feel like what I have is very organic. And she said it had to do with the energy of each person, which to me makes so much sense, right? You've got this person who is vibrating at a certain rate. It's all about vibration and frequency. And what I have to transmit, I believe, is different than what someone else has to transmit. And what I transmit will affect different people differently. So I think that it's quite individual at this point. That's just my belief. And so I could go and receive from someone else something entirely different than what perhaps someone would get from or even myself would get from my own light language.
That's kind of why I was asking you earlier, do you feel that the language needs to express itself at totally random moments, or do you feel like it's timely that, specific people are around you at that time that maybe are meant to receive something from what you're delivering?
Yeah, I think that I wish I were better at that. I think it does want to speak. I think it has things for people. And when I've gone ahead and done it, it's been important and needed to whoever was there. But so often it'll want to speak, and I will still decide I'm not ready to expose that part of me. So I hold it back. But I would like to. One of the readings that I had talking about the light language said that, we light workers, which is what we call ourselves, like to just use it amongst ourselves, because we kind of get this kind of stuff, but we need to share it. We need to share it. It needs to touch people. It activates DNA. It helps people remember who they are. We are in an awakening on this planet, and so more and more people need to hear it. I'm using it more. I'm talking now about being abducted at church meetings. I'm like a facilitator, and I said, well, I think I've been abducted. So I'm starting to share, and then I'll maybe use the light language. And they love it. And I have experiencers meeting here, and I try to use the light language just about every time. some kind of a prayer or some kind of a something, an opening, a welcoming, or a message. So I'm trying to use it more. This is an awesome way for me to use my light language and hit more than just light workers, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your sharing, because it's going to be a pretty big audience that will watch this. And I've noticed in the last, because I've been in this a long time, and I didn't see light language until a couple of years ago. And I would tell people, you think that what happens now happened then. I guarantee you it didn't. This didn't. This is just starting. This is new.
Starting.
This in 1990, they would have locked you up if you tried to do this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And now it's like the veil is thinning. The question I always ask experiencers, and I'll ask you, is, do you believe this is soul contract? Do you believe you have a mission? And if so, what do you think your overall mission is after you've gone through all the experiences and all what's happened? Where do you think that you agreed to go, and what are you supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I certainly believe that I came here for a reason. I came here for a reason. Part of what I had to do is clean up some of the family DNA. So we incarnate into a human body that's got messed up stuff. And so that's been a big work. I think that part of my work is to try to help people who have these abduction experiences, but they don't know they have been abducted. Maybe they have an interest in UFOs, but you can feel it in their energy field. I mean, I can tell someone who's had a similar abduction experience to mine. There's contact, and I want to separate contact from abduction. Contact is not necessarily traumatic. That can be quite beautiful, but there's people who have this energy field of trauma. They're amazing, they're gifted, they're healers, they're hiding, the energy field though has that vibration, and I want to work with them. I want to help them. I've been told that one of the things I can do, and one of the things you gain from abduction is multidimensional concepts. So I think, and I've seen this, when I work with light language sometimes, or even my healing energy, I'll go to a different dimension. We'll be healing in a completely different dimension. So I can go into this extra dimensional area and help bring in and heal people just with the energy and the vibration I carry, and acknowledging them and being with them. So that's part of my work. The other part of my work is to try to help people know about extraterrestrials, try to take the spooky out of it, try to just start talking about it without being ashamed, being afraid, or being worried about being judged. So I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about us being a collective. Higher evolved beings, they're collectives. They work as a collective. They work as one. We need to start thinking our problems with healthcare, most everything that we have, if we start working as a collective, will be solved by us being conscious of what our brother also needs.
Beautiful. You may know that I get a lot of experiencers that contact me, because I have an experiencer thing on the weekend, and I have an experiencer group and stuff. So if people were to contact me after they see your video, how do you have a website, or do you want me to link you up with these people, or what you?
Yeah, you can give them my email address.
Yeah.
Link them up. I'd be happy to talk to them. If they're in my area, I'll invite them to my meeting. I have a meeting like once a month or twice a month with experiencers.
Tell me about the meeting. Do you find other people in Phoenix who speak light language, or a lot of experience? Because you've got a big group there in Phoenix, right?
I have. It's just getting started, but there's also the MUFON.
The big one is MUFON, yeah.
Yeah, MUFON's pretty big. This is just that I hold it at my home, and I'm hoping that it grows. And the whole purpose, again, was to try to help people who feel alone, because I felt very lonely a lot of my life. And I'm trying to help people have a home. Like, we maybe don't feel like we're from here, but it's home. This is home. And we're here to help. And some of us are tired, and some of us are lonely because we think different. We think like this. We think about UFOs all the time. We think about the consciousness of the planet. So I wanted to give people a place to come and know they're not alone.
And Linda, do you feel like regarding the light language specifically, I mean, because as Grant just mentioned, and we've talked about this a fair number of times recently, actually, that he's seeing more and more light language emerging over the past 2-3 years. I didn't know anything about it really until I had an experience about 3 weeks ago, which was totally spontaneous and took me by surprise. But as somebody who, you know, you're obviously very comfortable in the experience of having this happen and speaking these different tongues and talking to people about it, do you feel like light language is occurring more often because it's a way of leading us towards a new way of communicating with each other here as human beings on this planet? I mean, there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and, you know, technology leading us towards new ways of communicating. For example, no longer needing to speak or to type even, but that telepathy would somehow evolve from the technological advances that are becoming more intermingled with our lives. So do you feel like light language is something that is obviously nothing like technology, but is something that is emerging more on Earth as a way of trying to teach us or lead us towards a new way of communicating with one another?
I think it is, and I think it's because it's speaking to the heart, it's speaking to the higher self, it's waking us up, it's part of the awakening consciousness of the planet. And as people start to remember, maybe it's just a past language we used to have, that it's just going to be part of our evolution, absolutely. And it's beautiful. I love it when I get to speak it. I love it when I get to hear it. I mean, it's really beautiful, isn't it? I mean, sometimes I sing, and it's just beautiful. So, yeah, I love it. I think it's great that we're all doing this. And Grant, you'll be doing it soon, too.
I hope so. I'm really glad that you've sort of brought this out, because I'm starting to push it and tell people. And I came from the nuts and bolts world, so a lot of times people on that side, they may still think I'm crazy, but they'll listen because they realized I was there. And that's what it comes down to, is experience, that more and more people are coming forward. Because I had, like Sinead mentioned, that she had this girl go spontaneous, and I was doing an interview with Misha Johnson, who you may know out of Las Vegas. And she, at the beginning of the second hour of the interview, she said, "I got a message for you." And she started to do it. That was like about 3 weeks ago. And so it's like, that's what I'm telling people, like, I can guarantee you this did not happen years ago. This is coming out. It's like this thinning of the veil, and it's very important, and people should listen to it. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you have gone, and you didn't have Mark. And I know Mark's a big support of you, that you spend a lot of time, and he's down there. And
yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So have you got any other questions, Sinead, or?
I don't think so, Linda. You actually ended up answering questions I had without me even having to ask them. So that was very convenient.
Great.
But it's been really interesting. I mean, I've never had this conversation in particular before. And it, like Grant was saying, it's something that's coming up more and more in conversation. And I think it's going to be really interesting for people to hear.
It's going to be interesting. It's an exciting time. We got to keep our eye on the goal, which is that we're getting to be, the consciousness is raising, and we're learning that we're all one.
Exactly.
Yes, that's very much our jam as well. Yeah, very much. That is directly our jam, actually.
Yeah, so, great.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Energy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I do appreciate it, and we will pass on the comments that come and the people, and maybe sometime you can join our. We have this experiencer weekend thing, and last week it started to build. There was 53 people last week. And there you'll see a lot of people. It's the same thing. I've never told this story before. They come on, sit in the background. They don't have to participate. But a lot of people, after a while, they just say, "I want to talk. I want to talk." And they will tell stories that they know. So hopefully you can come in and share with them. And
that would be nice.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And,
all right, thank you.
And when we're in Phoenix, I'll drop by. I'm there in September. So
I'll see you in April.
In April?
Unless it gets canceled.
Well, yeah, we're told not to leave the country now, and with health insurance and stuff. So I don't know. I may do that one we'll see what happens.
Right.
You only got 13, but in September, when is your meeting? What time of the month?
I have them once or twice a month. I schedule them as I feel like it. I'll just say, okay, I think we're gonna have a meeting today.
Okay, well then you have to have one when I get there, because I'd love. I always say, and I appreciate you coming on, because I've always said that if you want to know what the UFO phenomena is, forget about looking at lights in the sky, forget about the metals, forget about what the government knows. You've got to deal with the people like you who are interacting with the phenomena, whatever the intelligence is. And so whenever I get a chance to be with people, and your group is going to be experiencers who are the people that you need to listen to, that's all I listen to now. So I would appreciate if you would set up a meeting when I'm in Phoenix.
I will, I promise.
And we'll bring Sinead along, and we'll...
Awesome, do that.
That would be really fun.
That would be really fun, and everybody would really love to meet you.
Beautiful.
And hear about you, and that'd be great. Thank you.
Beautiful. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, Linda. Good night.
Bye.